Cozy Here With You by miloqu, Chapter 4. Darling, third person's point of view. Ochaka and Izuku walked down the hall, side by side, hand in hand. Their eyes were locked together. Deku, Ochaka stuttered. He gripped her hand more and pulled her closer. You'll be okay, princess. Izuku stared into her eyes, holding her close. I'll make sure of it. He grinned, his flustered look leaving his face. Ochako leaned against Izuku and closed her eyes, their hands still locked together. I love you, he muttered to himself, his heart racing. What? She replied, opening her eyes. Izuku shrugged and laughed gently, a smile on his face. He shook his head calmly, his hair hitting him slightly in the face. Nothing, he said, backing up in front of him. Ochaka clinging to his arm, their fingers locked together. She seems to have a pretty bad cold, maybe even the flu, Recovery Girl said, handing Ochaka a glass of cold water. Sick? She's sick? The flu? Izuku freaked out, rushing to hold Ochako. It might be best to take her home and care for her. I'll tell the teachers you're both going back to the dorms for the rest of the day. Recovery Girl smiled, grabbing a piece of paper and a blue ink pen. She began to scribble down a note, a smirk on her face. This will give those lovebirds some time to fall in love, she thought to herself, still scribbling down the note. She handed the note to Izuku. Give that to Mr. Aizawa, she said, then head off to the dorms. Izuku nodded and helped the weak Ochako to her feet. The two walked from the nurse's office into the classroom of 1A, where Shoto was at the front eating an ice pop and listening to Hitachi go on and on. Mr. Aizawa, we have a note for you. Izuku handed the note to Shota. He nodded and read the note, not taking the ice pop from his mouth. Okay, he finally said. You kids go on now. Izuku grinned slightly and nodded, holding Ochako's hand in his own again and leading her from the classroom. The two walked in the heat, the sun rays hitting against their skin. You sure you're feeling okay? Izuku asked, looking at Ochako with a look full of sympathy. She nodded weakly and smiled. I'm fine, Deku. The two arrived at the dorm and took seats on the sofa. Are you cold? Izuku asked, handing Ochako a cake pop. The brunette nodded as she placed the round chocolate cake ball in her mouth. I'll get you a blanket and some hot chocolate. He grinned, letting off a small but sweet giggle. Izuku rushed to his room to receive a blanket for the ill brunette sat on the sofa, cake prop in her mouth. I'm kinda tired, Ochako muttered, by the chocolate between her lips. Her eyes began to become hard to keep open, and she laid down, head on the sofa's red cushion. The cake pop slipping from her mouth as consciousness slipped away, and her eyes closed tightly. Hey, Deku, she muttered, eyes closed and cuddling to the other pillow on the couch. Wanna be boyfriend? And before she could move again, she was sound asleep and silent, resting peacefully upon the red sofa. Izuku opened his dorm door, quiet as possible, before looking around. Where's the light switch again? He muttered, filling the wall. His hand hit something sticking out, and he clicked it. The light came flashing on. Ha! He smiled. Now where's that blanket? He entered more into the room, searching through his drawers for the specific blanket he wanted for the brunette. Izuku's hand hit against an All Might action figure he had. It tumbled to the ground, and the head snapped off the body. Damn it! He yelled, kneeling down to pick up the broken figure. A sigh escaped from his lips as he stood back up, his hero figure on his hand, head in the left and body in the right. I'm such a child, he muttered, his hand slowly lowering. Maybe it's better if I stop fanboying over All Might so much. He went silent as the head of the action figure hit the ground with a thud, bouncing up and landing again, rolling across the floor and rolling under Izuku's bed. He grasped tight onto the body. Anger boiled up in Izuku and his heart pounding. He's just a man. As Izuku raised his hand, standing in the pose, one hand behind him, foot slightly put to the back. He made a quick motion, and the figure's body flew out of his hand, hitting the wall just before plummeting to the floor. Izuku grinned, sighed, and then wiped his eyes with his sleeves. He's just a man. Izuku had decided to change his clothes. He wore a plain white t-shirt, some black long shorts, and a gray hoodie. His bare feet hit across the carpet as he walked to his closet, spinning open the doors. How'd I miss that? He mumbled, no emotion in his voice. He grabbed the soft, fluffy green blanket he loved so much and held it close to his chest. I hope she wasn't waiting too long. Izuku gulped, emotions entering his voice again. He slammed the door closed with his foot and rushed down the stairs, leaving broken All Might marks and some blood from when he hit himself on one of the snapped dolls on accident, all over his bedroom floor. The lights still shone in the scene, the door wide open for anyone to see. He walked down the hallway, blankets in arms. Uraka! He softly yelled as he ran into the room. The brunette lay on the sofa, sound asleep, eyes shut and holding onto a pillow. A small giggle escaped Izuku's lips as he covered the sick girl with a blanket. I love you, he muttered, kissing her on the head and standing, walking from the room as the brunette laid on the sofa. Her eyes slowly opened as Izuku left the room, a gentle smile on her face. I love you too. End of chapter 4.